work on a set that I've wanted to do for quite a while. This is a Howard Model 430. It's probably from about the late 30s. It's not the best performer, but you got to admit, you got to see that streamlined styling is kind of neat. So I'm going to see if I can at least get this thing up and running, and then later on maybe do a cosmetic restoration, maybe repaint these lines, make these look a little bit better. I'm not even sure. It's probably paint that's on here. I'm not sure. Looks like it is. Maybe just touch up the wrinkle finish a little bit. Definitely don't want to do anything with those things here, because those are in really good condition. It does need a good cleanup here. But the first thing I've got to do is to get the chassis out. The way to do that, there's going to be 2 screws here, 4 screws here on the bottom, and the chassis lifts out from the case. It's kind of an upside down affair. So let me go on ahead and start with that, and we'll take a look and see what we've got. Okay, other thing I forgot about, there are 2 screws on each side that need to be removed as well. So now this bottom cover comes off. Here's the chassis. It's obviously been worked on before. There's capacitors here, disc capacitors. This looks like an original still in here. Somebody's been in here. That is kind of a worry. So I'm probably going to get the schematic and make sure everything's where it's supposed to be. It looks like for the most part it's pretty much unmolested, but I've got some work to do on this one. Oh, and looky here, that's a bias cell. If I had to guess, it's probably a little 1.5 volt battery that's been put in there, and it's been hot glued together. If I had to guess, that's probably what that is. Olson Electronics. Holy cow, that's an oldie. For the most part, looks like it's pretty decent shape. It's obviously power cord's been replaced. So the next thing I've got to do is get all the knobs off, and that should allow the entire chassis to be pulled. So give me just a little bit and I'll see about doing that as well. Okay, here's the chassis. That's definitely late 30s at its finest. Copper. Here are all some trimmers. Here's another one of those Olson caps. Those are going to have to go. Older style ST shaped tubes. Looky here. That's probably a rectifier on top of the transformer. 2 dial lights. I don't even know if those work or not. There's the band spread cap. Here's the main tuning cap. And underneath there, oh boy, that is a modern speaker. That's not a good sign. But I'll just have to take a look and see if any of this is going to work or not. And there's the IF cans. So I'll probably need to go through and check those on a tube checker and see how those are all doing, and do a little cleanup at this point. Let's see, our dial. I can show this here. I'll use a pointer. This is AM. This is shortwave 1, 1.7 to 5.5. The next one 5.6 to 18, and then the next one 16 to 42. Doubtful I'll see anything on there. And as with all of these sets, they usually have a little rust. I don't think there's really much I can do about that. So I'll do what I can to clean that up, and clean up those switches too. And then over here's the band spread wheel, and then over here's the wave change wheel. So I think I'll go get my tube checker and see what comes up with those. All the tubes have been tested. Used my Heathkit tube tester up there, just a simple emission tester, nothing fancy. All my other ones seem to be on the fritz, and for the most part they're all pretty good. This one here is a 41 type tube. It's a little on the weak side, but it's going to be adequate. All the rest of them perk up pretty good. I'm now looking at the band switch and dial cord assemblies, and gotta say, this is some very unique ways of doing things. This would be where the pointer for the band switch indicator is at. It's attached to a spring, and as you move the band switch, you notice that the spring gets more and more slack, and then this turns one notch and another. A lot of fuzz in here. I'm going to try to clean all that up. The sluggish indicator for the band spread, it works pretty much the same way. There's a string assembly here, and well, this thing here is a little on the goopy side, so I may just take all this apart and see if I can redo it. Because either the string has lost its elasticity, or not even its elasticity, but it needs to be shortened, I think, in order for this to work properly. It's just, and on top of that, this is sluggish. It's probably got dead oil in it or something, but this main part, the tuning drive assembly, seems to be working just fine. I'm going to clean the dial up just a little bit. Got to be very careful, from what I understand. Get too close to those numbers, they just wipe right off. Don't want to have that happen. And I went ahead and sprayed out the switches. I'm going to clean those up and also clean up the knobs. They're pretty gunky. You can see they all need to be cleaned up, and also get the cabinet. I thought that this is a replacement speaker, by the way, that's in here, but it's an older style replacement, so I'm not worried. I thought it was maybe it's going to be a Radio Shack or something like that. It's an old Quam speaker. So, well, I'm not happy about it having to be replaced. At least it's an older one. It's not like a modern one. And I haven't gotten to this part yet. I think I may try some metal polish on it first just to see how this all cleans up. And then later, if I need to, I'll just go over it with a light coat of black for these parts. And then, if I can feather all this out, put a nice coat of silver on here, make this radio look half decent again. But it's nice to be back into doing this. I haven't done one of these in quite a while. Been so busy with all the batteries, and I just had to give that up. It was just getting in the way of my family. So it's time to restore. Plus, I'm going to give you a heads up. I'm going to have one hell of a video here in the next, I don't know when it's going to be, but I'll do a preliminary analysis. My wife got me a great birthday present. You know about that radio over there. That's the, I think it's a 24, Radiola 24. I'm getting the Radiola 26, which is the more popular of the two. That's going to be a little bit before that shows up, though. It'll be sometime next week. So, anyway, on to deschmutzing this set and getting it cleaned up, making it look better, and then eventually I'm going to tackle all of those older capacitors and such, and then we'll fire this thing up, and hopefully I'll use that antenna up there. I know this is not a great performer. I've already know that ahead of time. But the last time I tried it, it didn't do anything at all. So I think maybe recapping it may spark, if I dare say use that word, renewal on this set, and see if we can get it up to life. Okay, I'm going to spray the edges, make them look like the original again. I did a little experiment with this stuff. Call it sterling silver. Well, the nice thing about it is, if I can show you here, I did the bottom along here. It's nice and even. Didn't really do much in terms of, there may be a few dings and that or whatever here, but I really don't care, because this is not going to look 100% new, but I do want it to look smooth, and it be just a tad mottled. It won't look that bad. So I've got everything covered up, and now I'm just going to pound this thing with some silver, and I'll show you what the results are going to be. Okay. I don't know about you, but I think that looks a hell of a lot better. So now what I've got to do, all this here, I just got to cover back in black and get that touched up, smoothed out, and do what I can to keep all of this in good condition. But yeah, I'd say that looks a whole lot better. That's the way it's supposed to look like, late 30s vintage. So amazing what a little paint can do. Oh man, it looks 10 times better. So a little bit later I'll put some black on as soon as that dries. Well, here it is so far. Now what I also did was I masked off certain areas around here. There was a lot of rust, a lot of paint loss here. And I went ahead and sprayed on some flat black just to even out the tone. And on the sides here, you can see how nice that's all turned out. So now, especially on the back here, there's paint loss and a few other things. Now it's all nice and even. And then you got this shine. Now I haven't done these middle parts yet. I want this to strengthen up a little bit before I do. These other parts weren't too bad. That was fairly easy to do. And of course I covered all this because I don't want anything to happen to this. But it surprisingly seemed to even out very nicely. So when tomorrow comes, I'll see if I can turn that off. Oh, wait a minute, there we go. Yeah, you can see all the crud. I had washed off as much as I could. But just a coat of flat black will take care of all that. And yeah, it just evened out the tone and everything real nice. So it's going to be a nice looking receiver once it's all done. So before long I'll be finishing this up and then working on the chassis. Alright, the cabinet is done. And, you can see there are hardly, you can see where the chips are, but now this coat of black has kind of covered it up. I say kind of, it's not fully, you can still see it, but it looks better than it did. And the only other problem I had was these little sections here. I tried originally to tape up these sections so I could spray here. The only trouble is it lifted the silver paint, so I had to dab on some stuff, some extra. And it didn't work out as well as I wanted it to, but it'll work. Now, I could consider it just, you know, imperfections in the metal, that sort of thing. So I went through with a small brush and I sprayed a bunch of black paint into a cup and then just painted it on by hand. It'll work. It looks good, and it's got about the same flat matte finish as the other one. Now you're wondering why I've got this in the bathroom. Well, my daughter, her two cousins, and a friend of my daughter's are all having a little girl fest, and they're running around all over the place. So I wanted to make sure that this cabinet didn't get damaged, because they can be quite wild. Oh, I do have a little bug here, some overspray of some black on here. Other than that, I think it turned out pretty good. That's the way it would have looked in the 1930s, and from a distance, well, it doesn't look that bad at all. So, I'm now going to continue working on the chassis. Well, I thought this was going to be a quick and simple restoration, but I'm forgetting this is 1930s, so there's usually a few more things that need to be addressed. I went ahead and took this off. This was for the band spread dial cord for the indicator, and I found out what was wrong. It just wasn't wired correctly, or strung correctly. This was not wound about 1 or 2 times as it's supposed to be down here, and so it didn't work all the way. The other problem I'm finding, you see right here, grommets are cracked, and I know the tuning capacitor's got the same problem. So what I'm going to have to do, I'm just going to take this whole thing apart. I need to either find or buy some dial string. I had some a long time ago. For the life of me, I have no idea where it's went off to. So I may just wind up having to purchase dial string. So all of this is going to have to be taken apart. And while I'm here, I'll just clean and lubricate everything. Get it all looking sharp, because there's still a lot of fuzz and stuff. I'll just redo the whole thing and put new grommets in place, and hopefully this will be all nice and working better than new. So that's the next step we've got to do. Okay, this is the main tuning cord assembly right here, and then that other hole down below where some 2 rubber grommets were, they just crumbled to pieces. Part of this I'm doing for myself for reference. This all needs to be taken apart and cleaned and then reassembled and lubricated. And then there's a second sub-assembly which holds the pots and such and other controls, and I imagine I'm going to have to get down to the tuning capacitor and replace the grommets on it as well, because it's just wiggling. Shouldn't wiggle like that. The grommets have perished on it. I figure, well, I'm this deep into it, might as well do the whole thing, do it right. I may have to redo the pilot lights also. I saw somewhere on, I think it was Antique Radio Forum where they showed how to redo those, so I may have to take a look at those and see how those can be done. But for the most part, a lot of this is going to just be mechanical restoration today. Clean this up, polish it, and get all the controls to be as slick as they originally were. So, without further ado, I'm starting.